Oh yeah. I walked into 100 rooms where no one knew my name, where the conversation carried on and I arrived the same. No entrance and no fanfare, just the corner and the glass, the quiet of a man who lets the louder moments pass. I've stood in hospital corridors at 3 a.m. alone, holding everything together, far away from home. I've stood at graves in winter, in the January gray, and said the things I needed to in silence far away. You learn a lot about yourself when no one's in the room, when the only thing reflecting back is what you came in with, the gloom. The rooms I walked through alone built something no one else has known. The rooms I walked through alone carved every corner, cut every bone. Yeah, no witness to the making, no audience to the cost. The rooms I walked through alone were where I found what I had lost. I've sat in waiting rooms of doctors with the paperwork and fear. I've driven through the early morning knowing no one's near. I've eaten cold food in the parking lot before the night shift starts. I've had conversations with myself that tore the mind apart. I've held the phone at midnight and then put it down again, because some weights are not for sharing, they're the private weight of men. I've stared at ceilings in the darkness, asking nothing of the sky. I've learned the art of carrying without ever asking why. The deepest rivers never announce, they just begin to run. The quietest fires burn the longest, long after day is done. The rooms I walked through alone built something no one else has known. The rooms I walked through alone carved every corner, cut every bone. Yeah, no witness to the making, no audience to the cost. The rooms I walked through alone were where I found what I had lost. I've sat across from men who had me figured wrong from the start, who saw the silence as a weakness, couldn't read the heart, who thought that calm and empty, thought that still meant done. I let them keep their version. It was easier than one. Easier than opening the drawer where all the real things live. Easier than showing what it costs to constantly forgive the worth of being what it is, demanding unclear, I just smiled and did my word and kept my counsel near. Waits till he is done. It knows just enough to sit beside him under every sun. I didn't come here to let go, I came to give the weight. Give it to the music, let the music carry late. The things that have no language, the things too big for words, the things a man keeps folded like migratory birds that come back every winter. And you know them when they land. The weight of all the rooms you walked along in your own hand. All those rooms, all those corridors, all those mornings I walked out of places and nobody watched me go. I used to think that was loneliness. Now I know that was the making of me. Every room I walked through alone was a room that made me stronger. Every silence was a sentence I was writing for myself, not for anyone else, for myself. The bartender here has seen me maybe 40 times or more. He never asked the questions I never asked before. We have an understanding built on nothing but the nod. Two men in the quiet, both acknowledging the God of getting through another night, of showing up again, of being unremarkable and strong and free of blame, of leaving when the hour comes without a backward look, a life lived in the margins of a great unwritten book. I've been in rooms of celebration that felt hollow at the core. I've been in rooms of ruin that felt richer than before. The rooms that shaped me weren't the bright ones, not the staged and planned. Every scar I carry has a date and has a name. Every one of them a lesson, and I'm grateful all the same. Not because the pain was easy, Lord, it cut me to the floor, but because what came out standing was worth bleeding for. I was 22 the first time that the world went fully dark, when the thing I thought would save me left its permanent mark. But I rose not because I wanted, not because I knew the way. I rose because the floor was cold and I had things to say. Oh yeah. Not to the world don't care. Not to the crowd, they weren't there. They weren't there, they weren't there. To myself, the only witness, to the man behind the stairs. Every scar chapter, every wound a word, every scar chapter in a book the world never heard. Every scar, every chapter, oh Lord, not written written for the audience, not written for the fame. Every scarred chapter in the book that bears my name. I was 31 the second time when everything fell through. The business and the woman and the version of me I knew. I sat in an apartment with the boxes on the floor, counting what I had left and what I'd walked out for. And what I had left was nothing that the outside world could weigh, but something deep inside my chest that chose to stay. That stubborn ancient furnace that has never fully cooled, the one that my grandfather had, the one that couldn't be fooled. He sat in rooms like this before, he sat in cold and dark before, and he rose not because it got easier, but because he had a core. Every scar a chapter, every wound a word, every scar a chapter in a book the world never heard. Not written for the audience, not written for the fame. Every scar a chapter in the book that bears my name. There's a scar above my collarbone from 1999. There's a scar inside my chest from a different kind of time. There's a scar behind my eyes that only certain light reveals. There's a scar inside my silence, that's the one that never heals. Not the one that kills you, just the one that tells you true, that the man you were at 20 has been making room for you, for the man you would become through the losses and the cost, for the man who counts what's left instead of what he lost. I've met men who wore their wounds like trophies on a shelf, who needed every room to know the story of their self. And I understood the impulse, Lord, I had it once before the years taught me to carry without keeping score. Now I wear my scars the way a suit is meant to fit, close enough to feel them, but not loud enough to sit at every table. As a story that precedes the man. I am the man who shows up, not the story, not the plan. Every man who ever built something real has the hands to prove it. Not the soft hands, the marked ones, the ones that tell the truth. When the mouth stays quiet, you want to know who a man is? Don't listen to him talk. Watch him work. Watch him stand up. Watch what he does when there's nothing left to prove, and he does it anyway. That's the man. That's the whole man. The blues was born from this, from men who had to carry everything they couldn't say in notes and in the tarry. Slow burn of a life lived close to the bone and true, the kind of life that makes you and the kind that follows through. I play the song for every man who's sitting with his glass, who's turning over chapters, watching seasons pass, who Silence is what you do when you're standing in the flame. Some men let it take them, some men let it leave them bare. Some men walk out of it differently, still standing, still aware. I choose to call it building. Every time the fire comes, I choose to take the ashes and to fashion something from the very thing that broke me into something new and whole. Oh yeah. I learned more from silence than from everything they said. More from empty rooms at midnight than from books I read. Silence has a texture. It's not nothing, it's a weight, the kind that settles on your shoulders, early, never late. It came to me the year I stopped pretending I was fine, the year I cleared the table, drew a harder kind of line between the man I was performing and the man I was inside, between the face I wore to daylight and the one I wore to hide. Oh Lord, not hiding from the world, understand. Hiding from the version that the world had built with its own hands. Silence taught me everything, more than any voice has ever said. Silence taught me everything about the living and the dead. About the man I was becoming through the long and hollow nights. Silence taught me everything, and everything was right. I learned to sit with discomfort like a guest inside my home, to pour it something warm and let it know it's not alone. Because the things we run from only grow in the running. The things we sit with quietly lose all of their cunning. I learned the difference between lonely and the being alone. Lonely is the absence, being alone is coming home to yourself, to the man beneath the mask, the one who has the answers, the one you're afraid to ask. Fear is loud, it needs the noise. Strength is quiet, it needs the space. Fear talks over everything, strength looks it in the face. Silence taught me everything, more than any voice has ever said. Silence taught me everything about the living and the dead, about the man I was becoming through the long and hollow night. Silence taught me everything, and everything was right. The blues was born from silence, from the things that couldn't speak, from men who had to hold it through the strong days and the weak, who who sat with instruments instead because the words weren't there, who bent a string until it sounded like a man's despair. I understand that bending, I have been that way before, when language wasn't wide enough to open up the door between the feeling and the saying, between the having and the gone, between the staying and the leaving, and just carrying on. I've had conversations with the silence at 4 a.m. More honest than the ones I've had with most of them. The silence never told me what I wanted to believe. It only told me what was true and let me choose to leave or stay with what was real, with what was mine, with what was hard, with every unpolished corner, every unhealed scar. And in that staying, in that choosing, in that honest dark, I found the man I actually was from the very start. People talk about finding themselves like it's a destination. Like one day you arrive somewhere bright and everything makes sense. That's not how it works. You find yourself in the silence, in the 3 a.m. rooms, in the long drives home, in the moment after the noise stops, when there's just you and the truth of you, and you have to decide what to do with what you find. The decision is the whole man. Now I protect my silence like a man protects his home. I don't fill it up with noise just so I'm not alone. I let it do its work in me, I let it run its course. I've learned that all the power comes from learning at the source, and the source is what is real, and what is real is what remains. When the performance has been stripped away and only truth remains, a man alone with what he is, no stage, no light, no cue, just the silence and the person that the silence always knew. I wanna tell you something that nobody told me young, that the quietest man I've ever known had the strongest lungs, not for shouting, not for arguing, not for making noise, but for breathing through the hard parts that destroy the boys who never learned to sit with, who never learned the art of being in the difficulty without falling apart. The art is not the absence of the feeling, Lord, it's not. They handed me the trouble early. I was barely 10 years old. The kind of cold that gets inside your chest and never gets told. My mother worked the double shifts, my father worked the land, and nobody sat me down to say, "Here, son, here's how you stand." But I watched them both get up each day, regardless of the weight. And somewhere in that watching, I started learning late that a man is not defined by what the world decides to give. He's He's defined by every morning and the choice to live. They say the strong ones will never cry. I say no, they cry alone, where the darkness can expose them and the ground becomes their throne. A man who never broke, didn't bend, didn't fold, didn't choke. Never broke. Man who never broke, carried every stone, bore every smoke. No speech upon a hill, just a man who chose the morning, every morning, every morning still. I worked in cold that bit the hands before the sun came up. I've worked in heat that turned the throat to dust inside the cup. I've seen the foremen come and go, the companies fold and fade. I never folded with them, I just picked up every blade and sharpened it on silence, on the long walk home at night, on every empty dinner table lit by failing light, on every unpaid bill I spread across the kitchen floor, on every door I held together, nailing board to board. They thought my quiet was defeat. I said no, it's discipline, the difference between the man who crumbles and the man who stays within. A man who never broke, didn't bend, didn't fold, didn't choke. Never broke. No man who never broke, carried every stone, bore every smoke. No medal, no monument, no speech upon a hill, just a man who chose the morning, every morning still. I raised my children on the understanding, not the words. I taught them with my posture, with the early rising birds, with the way I didn't flinch when things went sideways in the night, with the way I never needed someone else to tell me right. My daughter watched me fix the engine in the January freeze. My son watched me walk into the hospital, not to my knees. I never told him life was fair, I never sold him ease. I just showed him what a man does when he meets the cold degrees. Oh, some fathers give their children everything that money buys. I gave mine the only thing that lasts, the look behind the eye. There were years that tried to finish me, years I won't discuss. Years I sat in parking lots at midnight just because. The walls of home felt closer than the sky I used to know, and every road I drove along was somewhere I couldn't go. But I came back every morning, coat still on key, still in hand, not because I had the answers, just because I had a plan. And the plan was simply standing in the place where I was needed, in the gap between the fallen and the ones who were still seated. Nobody saw the nights, nobody counted all the mornings, nobody kept the record for the times I nearly didn't make it, but I made it. Every time I made it, and that's the whole story. That's EVERYTHING. A man needs to say hang in mind. We've walked enough together, it knows I'm doing fine. It's still a rise at 4 a.m., still heavy, still real. But I've become the kind of man who knows exactly what I feel. And what I feel is, whole, the kind of whole that only comes from paying every toll. Without a single invoice, without a single claim. Just a man who did the work and never filed the same. If you've ever met a man like this, your father or your friend, who never asked for credit and would never condescend, who fixed the things around him, who showed up, who remained, who didn't need the applause, who walked through all the rain. Look him in the eye just once and say, I see you, I know. Because the men who carry everything are last to let it show. They go the longest without water, they go the longest without air, and they do it all again tomorrow. Because somebody's got to be there. The man who never broke, never broke, never broke, never broke. A man who never broke, never broke. Oh no, never broke. He entered when the evening had already found its depth, when the candle had been burning long enough for every breath, in the room to carry something, every voice to hold its past. He took the corner table, ordered slow, made the night last. The amber in his glass reflected everything he knew. Every year a layer, every layer ringing true. He didn't need the company, he didn't need the crowd. He needed the piano and the bass and nothing loud. The bartender, he knew the type, the man who comes for clarity, not for conversation, not for strife, but for the music and the company of his own private life. The gentleman who carried the night, moved through the darkness, calm, no fight. The gentleman who carried the night, left no trace, no sound, no light. Yeah, only the other man who knew exactly where he'd been. The gentleman who carried the night was never ever seen. He'd been places that had cost him, things that don't come back. He'd walk corridors of consequence, down every unmarked track. He'd love the way that silent men love, fully in unseen, showing it in fixing things and in the space between. The words he never offered and the words she needed most. He understood too late, perhaps he'd given her a ghost. Not a ghost of absence, but a ghost of too much quiet. A love that never learned to speak above its own private. Yeah. He carried that the way you carry things too large to name.
Too large to name.
Not with guilt, but with the knowing that some losses just remain. The gentleman who carried the night moved through the darkness, calm, no fight. The gentleman who carried the night left no trace, no sound, no light. Only the echo of a man who knew exactly where he'd been. The gentleman who carried the night was never ever seen. Around him strangers traded stories, traded laughter, traded pain. He watched without intrusion, cataloged the small refrain of lives that needed audience, of people needing proof that their existence mattered, that they lived beneath a roof worth living under, worth the rent of being known. He gave them nothing, took from them nothing, stood alone, not in judgment, in the understanding of a different kind, the kind that comes from years of keeping company with your mind. Jazz here knows a thing or two about the patient man who doesn't rush the night alone, who doesn't rush the plan, who lets the music make the room before he makes his move, who understands that everything worth having has its groove. A tempo you discover, not a tempo you impose. A rhythm no one knows except the man who sat long enough in enough dark rooms alone to understand the difference between a house and a home. He didn't come here to be seen. He came here to be undisturbed, to let the music reach the parts that the rest of the day couldn't touch. The parts that live too deep for daylight conversation, the parts that only speak when the room is low enough and the glass is right. And nobody is performing, and the bass is walking, and the night is carrying him the way it always has. The night always carries him. He finished when the hour told him, not when he was done. He rose the way a tide recedes beneath a finished sun. No fanfare in the buttoning, no ceremony in the coat, just the measured, slow departure of a man who learned by rote that the exits matter as much as every entrance made, that the way you leave a room is part of how you'll wait. He left the glass half full, not as waste but as a sign that a man knows when enough is enough. Men like us don't speak of it. we just carry it and get on with the living of it. We just show up and we keep the structure standing, even when the walls are demanding more than we agreed to when we started. They never made a manual for men who carry this. They never wrote the chapter on the weight of all of this. Men like us don't speak of it, don't advertise, don't leak of it. Don't speak, don't speak. Men like us don't speak of it, we just hold it till the week of it passes into something bearable, something quiet, something wearable. Men like us, we just carry on in the silence and the long, long song. I've known men who worked the morning shift through grief that had no name, who clocked in at the same machine the day after the flame. Took everything they built, who smiled at the foreman's joke, who drove home in the evening in the silence, in the smoke of a life that keeps demanding that you show up, that you stay, that you be the thing the others need, regardless of the day. I've known those men, I've been that man, I know the marrow of it. A particular quiet that comes from choosing not to speak of it. Not because the feeling isn't there, but because the feeling is too large for open air. Men like us don't speak of it, don't advertise, don't leak of it. Men like us don't speak of it, we just hold it till the week of it passes into something bearable, something quiet, something wearable. Men like us, we just carry on in the silence and the long, long song. My friend lost his son on a Tuesday in November cold. He was back at work by Friday, 38 years old. I watched him move through the warehouse like a man who made a deal with some private understanding of exactly what to feel and when to feel it and where to put it, so the work gets done, so the others don't have to carry what belongs to one. I saw him in the parking lot on the Thursday night, alone inside his car in the dark without a light. I didn't knock the window, I just sat in mine beside him. Two men in their parallel silences and nothing to divide them. That's the language between men like us. No words required, just the knowing that you're in it. And it's just men like us don't speak of it, don't advertise, don't leak of it. Men like us don't speak of it, we just hold it till the week of it passes into something bearable, something quiet, something wearable. Men like us, we just carry on in the silence and the long, long song. Oh, Lord have mercy. Oh, I want to say this carefully because it matters every word. This is not a eulogy for men who should have spoken stirred. This is not a call to silence, not a prescription for the pain. This is is just the recognition that some things have their own terrain. Some grief has its own country and its own internal law. Some strength has its own grammar that the world has never saw. And the men who live inside it, who were raised inside its tongue, deserve to be acknowledged in a song that can be sung without condescension, without pity, without the modern claim that every man should process everything out loud and just the same. I'm not saying don't talk. I'm not saying keep it all inside. I'm saying there's a kind of man who carries what he carries because he chose to, because someone had to, because the family needed dinner and the mortgage needed paying and the children needed knowing that the world was safe enough. And he was the one who made it so, not by talking about it, by doing it every day without a single word. And if that man is your father or your brother, or the face you see at 4 a.m. in the bathroom mirror, I want you to know I see you. The music sees you. You are not alone. We sat beside our fathers in the old trucks in the morning. We learned the art of presence without needing any warning. We learned that showing up was love before we had the word, that love was in the doing more than anything we heard. We learned it in the kitchen at 6 a.m. in winter. We learned it in the workshop, every nail and every splinter. We learned it in the way they move. The weight looked better on me than it ever did on them. There's not pride, there's just truth from the mouth of a broken man. I watch softer shoulders buckle under half of what I hold. Watch bright-eyed boys turn bitter the first time life went cold. So I stopped asking why it found me, stopped asking what I did. Some men get the lighter end, some men learn how not to bend. Some men get a house with windows and warm hands waiting inside. Some men get long roads, long winters, and a war they never describe. My old man used to sit at midnight with his coffee going black, staring at nothing from the kitchen like he was holding something back. I never asked him what was hurting, never heard him once confess, but there was history in his silence and exhaustion in his chest. And now I catch myself the same way, half in shadow, half in thought, like pain gets passed down through posture more than anything you're taught. Like a man can inherit weather, inherit burden, inherit strain, inherit that old quiet thunder that learns to live beneath the pain They say you carry it so well, like that's some kind of gift. No, I just learned if I dropped it, nothing else would lift. The weight looked better on me than on the weak men asking life to set them free. I wore it like a winter coat nobody else could keep. The weight looked better on me. The weight looked better on me. It cut me deep, but it didn't make me leave. I took what would have drowned them and taught it how to breathe. The weight looked better on me. There were years I got so used to pain, I stopped calling it by name. Stopped dividing hurt from duty. Stopped dividing loss from shame. Everything just turned to pressure. One more stone against the spine. One more thing a man must carry if he wants to keep his line. And I won't lie and make it noble. There were nights I cursed the load, nights I hated every lesson carved into me by the road. Nights I sat and parked out darkness with my hand against my face, trying not to let old memories drag me backward from my place. Because the hardest part ain't lifting, it's lifting without becoming cruel. It's staying sharp without turning hollow, staying strong without looking for fools. It's keeping mercy in your bloodstream after everything gets mean. It's staying human in a world that respects you more when you're a machine. I've seen men use pain like theater. I've seen men sell grief for gold. I've seen men make a whole religion out of acting hard and cold. But the men I trust move quieter, almost like they know the price, almost like they understand real strength don't need to advertise. No one claps when you hold it together at 3 in the morning. That's why real strength is born there, without witness or warning. The weight looked better on me and on the mouths that swore they lived more truthfully. I carried what would have bent them and still kept my soul clean. The weight looked better on me. The weight looked better on me. Not because I loved it, not because it set me free, 'cause somebody had to wear it and I refused to leave. The weight looked better on me. Street light on a wet hood, city hissing after rain. Smoke from somewhere in an alley, curling upward like a vein. I'm walking through a part of town where old decisions still remain, where every window holds a life I might have wanted in another name. A woman pulls the curtain halfway, someone laughs behind the glass, and for a second something almost softens in me as I pass. But I keep moving, not from bitterness, just from knowing what I know. Some men are built to stay inside, some are built to always go. And there's a kind of peace in that, once you stop resisting truth, once you stop confusing longing with the evidence of youth. Once you understand a quiet man can still be full of fire, still carry tenderness and grief and never once call it desire. So I walk with all I've carried, every bruise and every vow, every ghost that tried to break me stitched into my posture now. And if I look a little colder, if I speak a little less, That's just what it costs to hold the line when life decides to press. The way didn't choose me because I was fearless. The way chose me because I would not run. Cause I could bleed and still keep balance. Cause I could lose and still get it done. Cause I learned some in a measure, not by joy, but by what they carry long after the joy is gone. The weight looked better on me than on the men who needed rescue. I kept my word to the man I'd become before I ever met his face. Back when I was still half angry, half lost, running hard in place. Back when every promise sounded noble, till the cost arrived for real. Back when I still thought a good heart alone was enough to seal the deal. But life has a way of teaching with a fist instead of a hand. It takes your clean ideas of honor and turns them into command. And if you're lucky, you don't grow softer, you don't grow cheap or numb. You grow into the kind of silence that keeps its word when trouble comes. I told myself I would not beg, would not become a bitter tongue, would not let pain make me smaller, would not live forever young, would learn the value of a closed mouth, of a measured step, a steady frame, would let my discipline speak louder than any wounded knee for name. So when the years got heavier, when the bright things fell apart, I had one thing left to stand on, a hard agreement with my heart. I kept my word to the man I'd become. When the room went dark, when the cold years came, when the soft men run, when love got lost, when the work got hard, when the nights got long, I kept my word to the man I'd become. I kept my word to the man I'd become. Not to the boy who wanted saving, not to the weak or frightened one, to the man who stands up straight when the whole world comes undone. I kept my word to the man I'd become. There were days I hated who it cost me to keep that promise true. Days I envied easy laughter, easy homes, and men who never knew what it feels like to outgrow your own tenderness just to survive. What it costs to keep your nerve intact and still remain alive. I buried versions of myself that would not make it through the cold. The one who needed reassurance, the one too honest to be sold, the one who thought that loyalty would always circle back around. I laid them down like old uniforms and did not make a sound. And no, that doesn't mean I'm heartless. It means my heart learned shape, learned not every open hand is safe, not every bond escapes. Learn that grief can sharpen vision, learn that solitude can teach, learn some truths are only earned by what no comfort ever reached. promise to yourself becomes a blade or it becomes a key. It either cuts away the weak in you or sets the stronger free. I kept my word to the man I'd become. Through every winter hallway, every bar after everyone was gone. Through every loss I never named, and every night I swallowed one. I kept my word to the man I'd become. I kept my word to the man I'd become. To the one who does not kneel for comfort, does not sell his soul for crumbs. To the one who guards his fire and never speaks before it's done. I kept my word to the man I'd become. Sometimes I think about my old man and whether he made that same vow, whether somewhere in his younger blood he drew the same hard line somehow, whether all the quiet in him came from promises he had to keep, promises made without a witness, planted far too deep to speak. Because I know now what it means to live by something others can't see, to carry law inside your chest and let it shape what you can be, to walk away from lesser versions every time they call your name, to let your standards be the fire and not the shallow need for fame. That's why I move the way I move now, why I don't explain too much, why my silence is not distance but a kind of disciplined touch, why I can sit alone for hours and not mistake it for defeat. I know the man I said I'd be, and every day I go and meet him. A man is not the dream he had, a man is what he keeps when life collects its payment and asked for blood instead of speech. So I paid in years, I paid in tears, I paid in nights no one could see. And when it all came to it last, I did not turn away from me. I kept my word to the man I'd become. When the hope ran thin, when the hurt sank deep, when the bright days were done, when the truth got sharp, when the road got steep, when the weak parts run, I kept my word to the man I'd become. I kept my word to the man I'd become. To the one with iron in his posture and thunder under his lungs. Strong men bleed in private, where the walls don't tell a soul, where the bottle stays half full and the heart stays under control, where a man sits with his damage like an old friend at the door, not inviting it to stay, just knowing what is there for. I've seen pretty boys talk bravery with clean hands and borrowed scars. I've seen them fold the minute life stopped giving them the softer cards. But the men I learned to honor never advertise their pain. They wore it in their their posture, in their eyes before the rain. My uncle lost his brother young. He never once performed his grief, just worked another 20 winters like labor itself was relief. And every Christmas, same old silence, same old pause before the meal. It taught me more about heartbreak than any words could ever heal. No, strength is not the absence of hurt, it's carrying hurt without laying down in the dirt. Strong men bleed in private, where the truth gets stripped and the soul stays honest. No witness, no halo, no need to dramatize it. Strong men bleed in private. Strong men bleed in private when the lights go low and the cold gets quiet. They don't need the world to name what survives it. Strong men bleed in private. I've had nights the chest went hollow, like a house after the fire. Like everything I thought was solid got pulled through barbed wire. And still I shaved till I showed up, still I held the line at dawn. Because some men do not get the luxury of falling apart for long. That's not pride, that's just knowledge of how this whole thing works. How the world loves steady shoulders and ignores the hidden hurts. How the same people calling you strong will never ask what it took. They'll just admire the way you stand and never read the book. So I quit expecting rescue, quit confusing hope with need, quit believing being chosen was the same as being seen. And I built a code of mercy, one that let me breathe and move. A way of living where I keep my center, no matter what I lose. If I go quiet, it ain't surrender, it's repair. A man does his hardest healing where nobody's there. Strong men bleed in private, where the room gets still and the mind turns violent. You hold your own damn hand when the night goes silent. Strong men bleed in private. Strong men bleed in private. No sermon, no stage, no song to romanticize it. Just a deep hard truth and the will to survive it. Strong men bleed in private. Midnight bar with the jukebox tied, amber on the glass. Old men leaning like worn out fences, letting the hours pass. There's a kind of sacred language in the nods that pass between men who've outlived parts of themselves and still keep their jackets clean. I sit there with that low smoke curling and a stone behind my eyes, thinking of every grave I carry, every version of goodbye. Thinking of women I loved honestly, and the times I could not stay. Thinking how a man can do his best and still watch things decay. And yet there's something almost holy in refusing to collapse and putting one more day between your name and your worst relapse, and choosing not to poison what little good remains inside, and taking all that bitter blood and teaching it to rise. Bleeding in private doesn't mean you're less alive. It means you learn some wounds get deeper when displayed outside. It means you chose your dignity over being understood. It means you built your manhood from surviving what you could. Strong men bleed in private and still walk out straight when the dawn rewrites it. Still carry the load and never let shame define it. Strong men bleed in private. like strong men. It just doesn't like what made them. No one heard the strongest part of me, because it never made a sound. It wasn't in the words I used, it was in what I carried around. It was in the way I held my ground when every easy thing was gone. And the way I kept my shape at night and still got up at dawn. People think they know a strong man by the way he fills a room, by how hard he hits a sentence, or how dark he wears his gloom. The strength is quieter than that, more precise and less impressed. It lives in what a man can swallow and still keep inside his chest. My brother used to call me cold when I stopped talking through the pain. Said I disappeared inside myself and never really came back the same. Maybe he was right in pieces, maybe some part of me went still, but what remained was not a graveyard, it was discipline and will. Because a man can lose his softness without losing what is true. He can stop reaching for approval and still remain more real than you. He can learn the sacred value of a shut mouth and a steady hand. Learn that calm can be more dangerous than rage will ever understand. They heard me less and thought there must be less of me inside. No, the deepest part of strength learns how to hide. No one heard the strongest part of me. It lived below the bone, below the pride, below what eyes can see. In the nights I did not break, in the days I did not leave, no one heard the strongest part of me. No one heard the strongest part of me. It wasn't made for open rooms of men who need to speak to be. It was forged in private hours where only God and walls could see. No one heard the strongest part of me. There were long years after heartbreak where I moved like winter rain, touching everything with caution, keeping order in my pain. I could laugh if it was needed, I could work, I could perform, but inside I was rebuilding from a very different stone. I had loved with both hands open, had believed in staying true, believed if I was steady enough, love would steady too. But life doesn't honor innocence and timing doesn't care. And some of the deepest cuts a man will carry started with him there. I would not become a coward, would not turn my hurt to poison, would not make a throne of damage, would not worship what destroyed him. I took that ache and broke it down like timber for the fire, fed it slowly to my purpose till it burned into desire. Not desire for affection, not desire to be seen, desire to become exact control, relentless, hard and clean. The kind of man who does not need the room to know his worth, the kind of man whose silence sounds like thunder under earth. A weaker man would make a speech or beg the wound to close. A stronger man learns how to walk with what he knows. No one heard the strongest part of me. It rose when hope went down, when nights got long, when love got mean. It held the line when everything in me wanted release. No one heard the strongest part of me. No one heard the strongest part of me. Not in my voice, but in restraint, in what I did not let them see. And every time I kept my word when no one paid attention to me. No one heard the strongest part of me. It's 4 a.m., the city's thinner, almost honest in the cold. The taxi cuts through shallow puddles, every storefront shuttered gold. I walk past bars with tired music and men pretending not to ache. I know that posture, know that distance, know exactly what they fake. But I don't judge them too severely. Every man survives his way. Some talk louder, some drink deeper, some find someone else to blame. Mine was always this: get quieter, get cleaner, get more still. Let the chaos spend itself outside while I protect what I can build. And in that life I found a rhythm almost beautiful and form. A colder street, a lowlit silence, a man becoming weatherproof in storm. Not untouched, no, never untouched, just unwilling to be owned by grief, by shame, by old abandonment, by the fear of ending alone. Because alone is not the enemy. Once a man has learned his name, once he's looked directly at himself and did not look away in shame, once he's built a code beneath his ribs no laws can reorganize, then solitude becomes a kingdom and silence becomes wise. The strongest part of me. I was never made for the crowd, never carved for the noise. Never one of those men who confuse their pain with poise. I learned young how a room can lie, how a smile can break in two, how the loudest hands in the building are the first to let go of you. So I kept my distance clean, kept my fire down low. Let the restless chase the light, let the weak men put on a show. I was raised by hands that worked, not by mouths that made demands, by men who never spoke a burden, just carried it in both hands. My father's coat smelled like winter, tobacco, rain, and steel. He never said the word love, but I still knew what was real, because he came home bent but standing every evening, every week. And I learned a man can say forever without ever having to speak. They thought I disappeared because I stopped trying to be seen. No, I was learning how to become something hard and clean. I was never made for the crowd. I was built for the dark, for the cold, for the proud, for the nights no one hears when you don't cry out loud. I was never made for the crowd. I was never made for the crowd. Not for cheap little wars of men talking too proud. I was made for the weight that breaks weaker men down. I was never made for the crowd. There were winners, I said nothing, for months beyond what work required. Something in me had gone quiet, but not dead, not tired, just buried under too much pressure, too much proof that people change, too much watching empty promises turn from warm to strange. And I won't romanticize it. There were nights I nearly went, not from one big tragedy, just from years of small descent, from the slow erosion of believing someone sees the things you bear, from the habit of standing tall while no one notices you're there. But that's where something happened, in the middle of that ache, in the long hours after midnight, when the walls were still awake. I stopped asking to be understood, stopped needing to explain, and what was left inside my chest was discipline through pain. You call it lonely, I call it truth without disguise. You call it silence, I call it seeing with my eyes. I was never made for the crowd. I was built for the storm when the sky hangs low and loud, for the nights a man survives and never says it out loud. I was never made for the crowd. That doesn't kneel or bow down. I was never made for the crowd. 3 in the morning, city breathing through a cracked neon sign. Shoes on pavement, coat pulled tighter. One more block, one more line. I passed windows full of warm lives I was maybe never meant to keep. A woman laughing in a kitchen, a child too young to know a break so deep. And for a second there's a flicker, something old beneath the ribs, a thought of everything I could have been if life was kinder than it is. But I don't stay inside that feeling, I don't let it make me weak. I let it pass just like cold weather, just another bite. I do not speak, because a man becomes exactly what he keeps alive at night. And I keep nerve and I keep order and I keep my soul upright. I keep the promises I made myself when nobody else stayed true. I keep moving like my old man did, with less talk and more to do. I don't need the room to love me. I don't need the world to clap. I need to know when I was tested, I did not fold, I did not crack. That's the whole thing, that's the difference, that's the line I never cross. A quiet man can lose damn near everything and still refuse to call it loss. I was never made for the crowd.